Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about how the energy requirements are met in normal gate. So as we know, whenever we initiate any of our activities, we need certain amount of energy to carry out all those functions. So same like that in gate also we have something called as energy requirements. So last class we have discussed about what are the forces which are acting on gate and how the gate is progressing in accordance with the forces which are acting on the particular joints, and what are the movements which are happening in all of the joints. So we have covered about all the kinetics and kinematics of gate. So today we are going to looking into how the gate is progressed, or how the energy requirements are met in the gate cycle. The main objective of locomotion is to move the body through space with the least expenditure of energy. So always we need to have a preserved energy to have a better performance. So one of the main objective of the locomotion is to produce the movement. At the same time we have to use only a less amount of energy, or we are not supposed to use a high amount of energy for a small activities such as gait, because in our body we have many systems. Among that, or our body got many functions. Among that, one is the locomotion. So for locomotion we are not able to produce much more of energy, so we have to minimize the usage of energy for gait. So the primary objective in the gate or in the locomotion is to produce that purposeful movements with a limited amount of energy. The overall metabolic cost occurred during locomotion may be measured by assessing the body's oxygen consumption per unit of distance traveled. So as we know, oxygen is the primary fuel, or oxygen is the primary ingredient which helping us for a better metabolism. So all the biochemical cycles has to be carried out in the presence of oxygen, or the oxygen has some function in carrying out those metabolic activities. So if you want to measure how much energy is utilized for such a gate activities, our easiest way is to assess the amount of oxygen which needed for that particular amount of gate propagation. So that's, we can actually correlate with the oxygen consumption and the distance travel in the gate. So the best way to assess the particular gate is to assess the metabolic rate, and the main function, or the main component which makes the metabolic functions are the oxygen. So if we are able to measure the oxygen consumption, so for the particular gate activity or for particular unit of gate activity, we are actually able to measure how much energy is required or how much energy is used for that particular gate. So when we talk about mechanical energy in walking, muscles perform work on the parts of body in order that they change their height or change their translational or the rotational velocity. So as we know, whenever we start to walk, we are not only going for a linear direction, but among our gait patterns, we have the rotatory or we have the translatory. All the movements are happening in and around the joint. So when we talk about that, when we talk about the walk, mainly two types of work are happening in the gate. First one is positive work, next one is negative works. Basically, positive means all the energy which is added to the body for concentric muscle contraction. So whenever there is a proper concentric muscle contractions are occurring, we can say that there is some positive work is happening. Or if you want to say that in the uh, helo phase, the hamstring is going for concentric contraction. So there is a positive work in the hamstring muscle group when we go from toe off to the acceleration phase in the swing. Uh, Acceleration phase in the swing phase. So that's how we can define a positive work. It means a concentric muscle contractions result in increase in velocity of some part or parts increases in height or both. In other words, energy is generated. So basically, in positive what happening, we are generating the energy. Means whenever we actively flex our elbow, our biceps are going for active concentric contractions. So in those conditions, what we are doing, we are actually creating the energy to produce the purposeful movement. So that's about positive work. Next one is negative work. All energy taken away from the body by means of eccentric contractions result in decrease in velocity of some parts or parts, lowering the parts of both. Another way saying that the energy is absorbed. So second one is the negative energy, where the main type of muscle work is happening eccentric muscle work. So for example, how we can say about the eccentric work which is done mainly the gluteus maximus. So whenever we go for heel strike phase, our gluteus maximus is going for eccentric contractions to control that proper flexion in the hip joint. So whenever we go for the heel strike, there should be a minimum of 20 to 30 degrees of hip flexion. At the same time, that's the time when the hip flexors are working concentrically. So at the same time, the gluteus maximus, that means the extensors of hip joint, has to work in an eccentric way to make that movement much more purposeful and a equilibrated movement. So that's about negative work. So in negative work, what happens? It's absorbing the energy. So that's a positive and negative work. Okay, that's about the energy and how the energy is acting on gait, or what are the requirements of energy on gait. So next we are going to looking into detail about what are the things which are happening from the heel strike to the deceleration phase all together. So till now we have discussed as a separate part of kinetics, kinematics, and the moment and forces. So now we are going to look in detail how this all are actually happening. In heel strike, the signals begin in stance phase. The moment the heel comes in contact with the ground. So as we all know, the heel strike is the time when the heel is going to be in touch with the ground. And when we take the Rangelo's amigos system, this is the initial contact time. So it's another way, or it's another system how we can differentiate the gait. So in Rangelo's, it's called as an initial contact. So usually in heel strike, what happens? The hip has to go for 25 degrees of flexion, knee almost in a neutral position, but till a 5 degrees of flexion, and ankle is in a neutral position. During foot flat, in Rangelo's amigos, it's called as a loading response. During foot flat, what happens? When the entire foot is in contact with the ground, occurs shortly after heel strike. So first we strike the heel, then we go for the foot flat. And loading response is the time period between the end of heel strike and the end of foot flat. So that's what we call as loading response. During foot flat, there should be 25 degrees of hip flexion, and the main thing is that the knee is going for 15 degrees of flexion and ankle joint is going for 10 degrees of plantar flexion. And this is the summarization how all the forces are generating in the from the initial contact to mid stance phase. So in hip joint, what happens? Extension from the hip extends from 20 degrees, 30 degrees, and to neutral position. There is an anterior to posterior ground reaction forces, and there is an extensor internal movement to neutral, and the main power generators is by hip extensor, that means the gluteus maximus. Hamstrings are the main extensor group of muscles which is producing an extensor power in the hip joint. In knee joint, it comes from 0 degrees of flexion to maximum 15 degrees of flexion, and the ground reaction force is coming from anterior to posterior. The internal movement, both flexor and extensor are happening, and the generation of force is mainly by hip knee flexors, and absorption is done by knee extensors, and again generation is done by knee extensors. That means, as we said, in ground reaction force is coming from anterior to posterior, so there is an alteration of power which is generated in knee joint. The main muscles which are acting on the hip joint during initial contact to mid-stand phase is the quadriceps, hamstring, and the gastrocnemius. So the quadriceps will produce a generating a force, and it will produce a extensor moment, and the hamstring and gastrocnemius will produce a flexor moment at the knee joint. And ankle joint, it's from the neutral position, it's going for a plantar flexion about 5 to 15 degrees of plantar flexion, and the ground reaction forces are coming posterior to anterior. There is both dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, and the absorption is mainly done by the dorsiflexors, and the generation of force is done by plantar flexors. So the main muscles which are producing absorption power is by the tibialis anterior, and the generation is done by soleus and gastrocnemius muscle. And this is the movement which are happening in frontal plane. In hip joint, it's the motions which are happening here, adduction to abduction, and there is a medial ground reaction forces. The main moment which are happening is abductor moment. The absorption, the group of muscles which are absorbing the force or which is going for eccentric contractions are hip abductors, and the generation of force is done by hip abductors, and the main muscles which are acting are gluteus medius. In knee joint, small variations from neutral position, that means there is only limited amount of rotations which are happening in the knee joint. There also the ground reaction forces are coming to medial, and there is also abductor moment which is happening. A small generation of the power is mainly generated by the knee abductors. The main muscle which is acting on knee abduction is tensor fasciae latae. Next is ankle joint. It everts from 5 degrees to inversion of 5 degrees. There also the ground reaction forces are happening to medial, and there is only very small moment which is occurred, which is produced by the everter muscle. And the main muscle which generates the force is peroneus longus, and only a small amount of absorption is done by peroneus brevis, and there is some amount of power is generated by the tibialis anterior muscle. And during transverse plane, the motions which are occurring in hip joints are externally rotates for a few degrees, and there is a external rotator movement happening. The power is mainly produced by absorption, that means internal rotators are acting eccentrically to produce those movements, and the main muscles which are acting are tensor fasciae latae. In knee joint, there is also some amount of external rotators are happening in the knee joint, and very small amount of extensor rotator movements are produced, and some small amount of absorption is done by this extensor rotator. That means all the time when we are talking about absorption, we are actually talking about the eccentric contraction of those particular group of muscles. So whenever we talk about the generation of forces, we are actually talking about there is a concentric contractions of muscle. So in knee joint, the external rotators are the one which is absorbing or which are eccentrically contracting to produce the movement. And next is ankle joint. Ankle joint also there is some external rotation happening from 5 degrees to neutral, and then to 5 degrees of minus 5 degrees of external rotation from the neutral. So there is also some extensor rotator moments are happening, and it's extremely small, and it is not detected by any of our study methods. Next is midstand, the point at which the body passes over the body and body weight is bearing by the foot. In Rangelow Samike, midstands is the period between end of foot flat and the end of midstands. During midstands, there should be a 25 degrees of hip flexion and knee joint, 15 degrees of flexion, ankle joint, 10 degrees of plantar flexion, and at the end of midstands is going for 5 degrees of dorsiflexion. So these are the movements which are happening in midstands phase. Next is heel off. Following midstands, there is a heel off phase, which is the heel is rising from the floor. So after this midstands, we are progressing to the swing phase. So to begin with the swing phase, we have to take our foot from the ground. So in that process, the first one we are taking the heel off from the ground. After that, we will taking the toes off. So in Rangelos amigos, it's called as terminal stance. It's a period between the end of mid stance and the end of heel off phase. During heel off, the hip is almost in a neutral position, and from neutral to 20 degrees of extension it can go, and knee joint is in a neutral position, and ankle joint from 5 degrees of dorsiflexion it can go for 10 degrees of dorsiflexion. Next is toe off phase. As I said, we are going for a new we are going for swing phase. So for that, we have to take off our foot from the ground. So the last phase which is occurring in stance phase is toe off. It's a end of push-off portion of stance. That means we are ending the stance phase. And in the Rangelos amigos, it's called as pre-swing phase, the time period between before and including when the toes leaves the ground. That means we are taking the toes off the ground. So that's what happening in pre-swing or in the toe off phase. In toe off phase, the hip is in 20 degrees of extension and it comes to neutral position. Knee joint from 0 degrees of neutral position to it goes for 40 degrees of flexion. In ankle joint from 10 degrees of dorsiflexion it will go for 20 degrees of plantar flexion. And this is the summarization. Next is swing phase. So in the traditional terminology, we can say it's acceleration, mid-swing, and deceleration. But in Rangelos amigos, we call it as initial swing, mid-swing, and the terminal swing. So in the acceleration phase, in this phase, the leg is behind the body and moving to catch. That means we are actually accelerating our foot to go for a forward movement or a forward translation of our body. So that means we are moving our body to catch up with the progression of gait. Next is in the Rangelos amigos, it's called as mid-swing period. It's a period between the end of toe off and the end of acceleration phase. During this acceleration phase, the hip joint has to go for 15 degrees of flexion, knee joint to the maximum of 60 degrees of flexion, and ankle joint will go for 10 degrees of plantar flexion. Next is mid-swing phase. In Rangelos amigos, mid-swing is the period between the end of acceleration and the end of mid-swing. So usually in the traditional terminology, we call it as a mid-swing phase. But when it comes to Rangelos amigos, mid-swing is the period between the end of acceleration and the end of mid-swing. During mid-swing phase, the hip has to go for 25 degrees of flexion, and knee will comes from 60 degrees of flexion to 30 degrees of flexion. Then ankle joint is almost in a neutral position. Next is deceleration. That means we are going to touch the ground, or we are going to start with the new gait phase. At that point, during deceleration, in this phase, the non-weight bearing limb prepare for the heel side. That means we are almost about to start with the new gait phase. In Rangelos amigos, it's called as terminal swing. It's a period between the end of mid-swing and the end of deceleration phase. During this deceleration, the hip has to go for 30 degrees of flexion. Knee joint from 30 degrees of flexion, it comes to neutral position. That means we have to straighten our whole lower limb to start with the new gait phase. So the knee joint from 30 degrees of flexion, it comes to neutral position, and ankle joint will remain in neutral position. So these are the muscles which are acting in the ankle joint during the phases of gait cycle. So first, in the initial contact, the tibialis anterior is the one which is mainly acting during loading response. Same, the tibialis anterior will be working. In the mid-stand, what happens? The gastrocnemius will produce a posterior moment in the knee joint. So it will give some stability to the knee joint during mid-stance. Then in the terminal stance, again, this gastrocnemius will be working. In pre-swing, the gastrocnemius will produce actually a flexor moment which will be helpful to initiate the flexion of knee joint. And during initial swing, what happens? The tibialis anterior will be working to produce a dorsiflexion. In mid-swing, again same thing, the tibialis anterior will be producing that dorsiflexion, and terminal swing also the tibialis anterior will be working. So why we need to analyze all the muscles in separate joints? What the need to analyze this? So whenever we have some pathologies, so whenever we have some patients who had some difficulties in gait or in some phases of the gait, we need to analyze what is the muscle or which are the muscles which actually causing the problem to the patient. So in the initial contact, as we know, the tibialis anterior has to work to start with the initial contact. So what happens if the tibialis anteriors are not properly working? So there will be some pathologies can occur in the initial contact period. So you might have noticed in some patients or the patients who had poliomyelitis, they won't have this tibialis anterior power. So they have some neurological problems. As a result of that, the tibialis anterior muscles or the dorsiflexors are not working properly. So that's the situation when we have some clinical condition called as a foot drop. So the main problem which is occurring in foot problem is that they are not able to produce a enough force to keep the ankle joint in neutral position or to have a proper force generation in the tibialis anterior to have a proper terminal swing and initial contact. So it will result in something they are slapping to the ground. They are not able to control the initial contact. So they will be slapping to the ground. So that's the importance why we need to analyze all of these muscles in corresponds or in response with the gait phase. Next is a knee joint. What happens in the initial contact? The knee extensor will be working more. At the same time, the hamstrings are also working. That means there are both force generators and force absorption which are happening in the knee joint. So at the initial time, both the hamstrings and the quadriceps will be working. Loading response, all the same thing. And early mid stance, both the quadriceps and the tibialis anterior will be producing some movement to the knee joint. In the late stance, only the gastrocnemius will be the one which is producing some muscles, some force which will be helping to initiate with the next phase. The terminal stance also, the gastrocnemius or the calf muscles are the one which is primarily acting on knee joint. And during freezing phase, what happens? The sartorius is the primary muscle which is acting on freezing and initial swing. Also the same thing will be happening in mid swing. The iliopsoas will be producing some moment, some forces to the knee joint, and in the terminal stance, the quadriceps will be acting to make the knee joint in neutral position and to initiate with the next gait phase. And in hip joint, during initial contact, what happens? Both extensor group are producing some kind of forces to stabilize the joint and to produce an eccentric contraction to initiate the gait. So the gluteus and the hamstrings will be working, and the loading response, same thing will be happening. And in early stance, only the gluteus, medius and minimus will be activating, and in terminal stance, the iliacus muscles will be activating. In freezing, the sartorius and the adductor muscles will be activating, and in initial swing phase, the iliopsoas will be activating to produce that movement, and in terminal swing, the hamstrings will be producing some forces to make the gait progress.